I will be talking, that's boring, next, about various forms of feminist art communities, past and present. We are a grassroots independent collective of artists, art historians and passers-by. This is the inaugural meeting of a group called Contemporary Art and Feminism some years ago. And out of this we've developed a number of different projects, a couple of books, several exhibitions at Sydney College of the Arts, and an ongoing project which I'm particularly involved in, which is the Future Feminist Archive, which is interested in how archives deteriorate and what's happening to the feminist history out there. And by out there I mean here in Sydney and out in the regions. So Future Feminist Archive, this is where an interesting starting point, because this is the mural that was done for the 1982 Women in Arts Festival, which is just below the Art Gallery of New South Wales. Now that's completely demolished, degraded, covered in graffiti exit doors. But this is the first major artwork by a remote artist, Nora Bindle, in a contemporary urban context. And I invite you to creep behind the bushes and you can actually still see that. It's actually survived. Very little of that mural remains. This is a mural that has been replaced largely by community action. And Kathy Craigie leading a walk called Down City Streets. And that's been revived by Carol Ruff, the original leader of that mural, and by Jason Wing and people from Eora. This is kind of where we're going, is toward this, looking at International Women's Day in regional areas. And there are fragments of this in many, many places. And the whole idea of this is to counter the idea of regional narratives being narratives about diminishment. That you go into these communities and everything's gone. So what we found initially with the first project, with the Future Feminist Archive, is that the custodians of the smaller, more fragile archives are in fact the ones who are writing the counter-narrative and keeping the history of these archives alive. So this is the archive from the first project, which we then gave to our participants as so that they became the archive and they could do with it what they wanted to. So it was a sort of transfer of that historical responsibility back to the people who were keeping it. So what we're hoping to do with and some of you will see yourselves in some of these images, so I do apologise for not announcing people. This is our little case study because this is near where we are. This is part of the Future Feminist Archive. Was about the displacement of the community in Millers Point and the Rocks, and we documented that and created art events and art actions as they were going. And this was one of the exhibitions that gathered that community together and some of our art historians and artists to, I guess, sort of celebrate, but it was also quite sad because we were commemorating a social cleansing. Another more positive resurrection of an archive was in Dubbo. Lynette Riley commemorating her godmother, Pearl Gibbs, who was one of the founders of the 1968 referendum that gave Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people the vote. And the other thing that we're particularly fond of doing is doing data things and counting. So doing sort of things that are kind of quiet, but we think are sort of quietly sexy. Like data sprints, Elvis Richardson as Countess, doing big data crunching. This is the collection of the Art Gallery of New South Wales as an example. Over 40 years, and as you can see from those pie graphs, the representation of women has not changed. So despite all of our work and despite so many generations now, I mean, we're talking, we ourselves as a group have got 3 generations, so you know, we just have to all keep working on trying to maintain and protect these histories and these legacies. And this was actually an exhibition in the Art Gallery of New South Wales itself, so we're not anti-big institution, but we are very pro the marginal and the ephemeral, you know, and also to show over and over again how these are actually sites of generation and are determining contemporary practice and the way we approach things in our museums. This is another artist group that I'm a real fan of, Front Yard, who have actually saved the library of the Australia Council, which is there, and in bedrooms. And hopefully we'll be doing something with that in Archive Live. So, you know, again, this narrative of nothing is sacred, nothing is protected. So, and this was generally the pitch. None of these regions have funding. So basically funding is the problem. You know, nothing is getting out from the metrocentric regions. The you know, Sydney, Melbourne, Brisbane are getting bigger, fatter, richer, and taking more and more from the regions. So there's a real battle going on out there. So I guess my pitch is to, you know, museums and galleries who are doing a great job and have made great submissions to the parliamentary inquiry into museums and galleries for more funding for the regions, and is just to keep that going and for you here to join in that and make sure that that actually happens and don't take anything for granted.